When the nWo starts, you've brought in Hall and Nash, who are also big personalities and have their own opinions. Was it tough to navigate Hall and Nash's views, opinions, ways they wanted things done compared to Hulk's?
No, that's a great question. And I'm sorry, I want to take you. I got to give you the backstory in order for you to really understand this, or at least see it from my perspective. So Hulk, we only had Hulk for 4 pay-per-views a year. That was his contract. We do, January, February, and then we'd usually shoot for October and December. That's when we would use Hulk on pay-per-view, because those were the best times of year for pay-per-views. Summers sucked for pay-per-views at the time because people were out fishing and hunting and taking vacations and traveling and whatever. People weren't sitting at home watching television much during the summer. So Hulk had already done 2 pay-per-views that winter. He was scheduled to do 2 more in the fall and in the winter of that year. So there was like a 4, 5, 6 month window there where we weren't really even talking to Hulk. He wasn't part of our creative process. That's when Scott Hall came available. That's when Kevin Nash became available. And I did the deal with Scott and Kevin without even thinking about Hulk Hogan, because he wasn't going to be back till probably November anyway, or October. I'm in May at that point, April, when I first started negotiating their deals. So I didn't even think about Hulk. So I brought Scott in. We did, Scott comes down through the audience and then does his thing, and then he finds out, and he teases the audience, says, next week I'm bringing my big buddy. Following week, Kevin Nash comes in. In the meantime, Hulk Hogan is off in the middle of nowhere, California, shooting a movie called Santa with Muscles. Has anybody here seen Santa with Muscles? Raise your hands. Oh, I feel so bad for you, brother. You're the only one in this room. You may be the only person in London that's seen that movie. But Hulk was off doing that movie, so there was no need for me to talk to Hulk or say, hey, Hulk, what do you think? Or, how do you feel about this? Didn't matter. There was no connection to the 2 issues. So I brought those 2 guys in, and I get a call from Hulk Hogan while he's doing his Santa with Muscles movie that guy in the back saw. And he said, hey, brother, can you come out to L.A. because I want to talk to you about the rest of my year in let's talk about what we're going to do in the fall. I said, sure, we'll do that. And I flew out. He was way outside of Los Angeles, way up in the mountains, because they were shooting this movie. It was in the summertime, but they wanted to look like wintertime, so they were way the up in the mountains where there was snow, actually, in whatever time of year it was, May or June. And it was like 2 hour and a half, 2 hours outside of L.A. So I'm driving from the L.A. airport. I finally get to Hulk's trailer that night. It was late. This might have been 11:30, midnight, whatever it was. And I've been flying. I flew in from Atlanta. I was kind of like beat. So I get to Hulk's trailer, and he's waiting for me. And he's got a case of beer on ice. He's got a box of Cuban cigars. He's sitting back smoking a Cuban cigar. We have a seat. He opens me a beer, gives it to me. And eventually, after we get done making small talk, he's stroking his Fu Manchu, and he says, so, who's going to be the third man? Because Kevin Nash had already come out, and Scott Hall said, oh, we've got a third man. It was a mystery, like, who's the third guy? And at that point in time, it was going to be Sting, because I'd already talked to Sting, convinced him it was going to be a great opportunity for him. Sting was on board. That's a whole other story. I took some convincing, but Sting was in. I didn't even think about Hulk being the third guy. It would have never occurred to me, because a year earlier I tried to talk him into turning heel, and he literally escorted me out of his house. He did. I flew down there. At the time I had my own plane. I was a pilot, and I flew myself down to Florida, got a rental car, went to Hulk's house. I get to his house about 1 in the afternoon or so. Go into his office. He's got a case of beer on ice. It's kind of a common theme, right? Hold on. So I get to his house, and we sit down, and I didn't have an idea. I didn't have a plan. The only thing I had in my mind was, you should turn heel. And I pitched I'm a pretty good salesman when I want to be. And I'm pitching him, and I'm pitching him, and I'm pitching him, and Hulk's stroking his Fu Manchu. And when Hulk Hogan does this, you're because he's deciding how he's going to tell you you're He's listening. I'm pitching. I think, oh, man, this is going great. I'm going to turn Hulk Hogan heel. He's stroking his chin because he thinks it's a good idea, and he's trying to imagine how it's going to be fun. I get all done, and he said, all right, well, I got to go get my kids from school. Thanks for coming. Unless you've walked a mile in my red and yellow boots, you'll never understand. But hey, you can take the beer with you. I have never been thrown out of somebody's house so elegantly in my life. And I was able to take the beer, which I did, by the way. And that was the end of that. So for that reason, Hulk didn't even occur to me as the third man. But when Hulk, saw what Scott Hall and Kevin did and saw the opportunity that it provided, to answer your question in a long-winded way, I think Hulk he didn't really care about Scott's or Kevin's personalities or their issues or their reputation. He saw the opportunity that it provided, and it was actually quite easy. He was actually pitching me. I wasn't pitching him.